now that I know who to hire, how do I find a space, and what do I put in my lease agreements to make sure that I'm protected in case my business doesn't work or in case I decide to move on? What would I do in that case?
Finding a space for your business in New York is a huge question, and it's a lot of what we do. It's actually pretty complex because a lot of landlords, even post-pandemic, are asking for 3, 5, even 10-year lease terms, personally guaranteed by you. So what that means is you have to be able to tell where you're going to be in the future 5 years from now with your lease that you're signing today. A very precarious kind of situation.
Yeah, so what would I do if I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years? What's my alternative?
So your alternative is to say, we're not going to sign a 5-year lease, maybe we'll sign a 2-year lease or a 3-year lease, or we'll sign a longer lease with this thing called a good guy guarantee. This is a pretty unique phenomenon in New York where, since the law is so tenant friendly, landlords give you this out, and it says, okay, as long as you're going to be a good guy or good woman and you vacate your space, leave it broom clean, you don't have to pay the rest of the rent. Because it's so hard to evict a tenant in New York, especially a commercial one, who can demonstrate, good faith and that they've been a good tenant so far. It may take a year for them to go through the eviction process and like $25,000. So they would much rather say, okay, Natalie, you can walk away from your lease. You're going to lose your security deposit, but nothing else. So one thing you can do is get this thing called good guy guarantee. The other thing is, you can start small. There's no reason why people need to open a huge space or spend $1 million or $100,000 on a build out. I think that's a little foolish for someone starting their first business.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question. If I don't want to spend so much money on rent and I just want to take maybe a room in somebody else's office, how do I do that?
Yeah, great question. If you want to just take a room in somebody else's office, another good option is medical co-working spaces. So there are a couple of companies in New York that do this, and that's all they do, and which is pretty cool because you'll be in a big space and you'll have your own room. It's usually about $3,000 a month, maybe a little less or a little bit more, and it's your own room to do with as you wish, and you're in a space with a lot of other medical professionals that you could potentially get referrals from. And those leases are usually much more friendly in terms of term. They may be 6 months or 3 months, it's negotiable. But either scenario, we could help you negotiate because we know the market really well. And the third way to do things is you can go on Craigslist and just find a room to sublease, not from a co-working space, but just from another spa or an acupuncturist or chiropractor. And the market rate for that as of right now is about $1,500. And it would be less if, you're more uptown or more downtown. But in midtown, prime building, probably $1,500 a room.
And what kind of terms should I put in a sublease that I wouldn't otherwise think of?
Great question. So one thing that you want to think about when doing a lease or a sublease is permitted use. And another thing you want to think about is term. So term is the most important thing. Term is how long the lease is for and what your options are in terms of renewal. And then subleases, you want to be able to have the ability, if at all possible, for you to sublease and for you to also have other people there. So let's say you rent a room, right? You're renting it 7 days a week and you hire a nurse practitioner. And let's say you're already a nurse practitioner, so you work 4 days a week and she or he would work the other 3 days a week. But if your lease doesn't specifically let you do that, there may be a problem. So in your lease, make sure it says that you can have other people there, that there are no occupancy limits, and that there are no prohibitions on what you can do. Of course, a lot of leases are going to say things like no gambling, no tobacco sales, stuff like that, but we're not talking about that. This is more like some leases will say, we only let you do medical spa services, so you can't sublease to an acupuncturist. Well, why not? You have to ask that question. But the best time to ask that question is right in the beginning of the lease, not after you sign all the paperwork, because then you're kind of stuck.